What's going on, guys? How's everyone doing? Emotemp is back today, and today we are doing the Knights deck profiles. Now, in the title it says Knights 3 ways, and that's because I'm giving you 3 different kinds of Knights decks that I've tried out, practiced, and I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on how good they are and where they stand in the meta. I'll probably be doing like a top 10 decks of the meta, or a top 5 things you should be playing or things you should be watching out probably next week. It's probably why this one took so long. Playtesting the Knights has been interesting and rough, to say the least. There's a lot of things that this deck does very well, and there's a lot of things that this deck loses to very well too as well. So let's get into it. The first one, and probably the most common one you'll see, is Fire Water Knights, or Water Fire, however you guys want to see it. I'm going to go through the list a little bit and tell you why I went with some of these choices. This is probably the one I've played the most and have the most reps with. Probably the most successful. Not to say it should stay that way, because the other ones have a lot of potential as well. It's just this one has a little. It gets to play Amaterasu, and that's really the biggest thing. If you're not playing Amaterasu in this meta, in this series, in this set, you're doing it wrong, I think. So first of all, triple Zidane. I know sometimes FFTCG is a little buggy, so if it starts flashing like that, just bear with me there, guys. Zidane is a very simple, opening hand card. We have triple Sage and triple Belias to kind of pop off right away and get away with drawing cards and start, getting ahead of our opponents. The real thing is, though, Zidane is quite frankly kind of like the win the game by himself kind of guy. And what I mean by that is that if your opponent doesn't have anything to deal with him turn 1 or turn 2, you'll be like 2 turns ahead of them, probably 2 or 3 turns ahead of them in terms of developing your board. And the longer he stays out, the further that gap gets. Now, I know I said like playing Amaterasu is important, so if someone has one, it's obviously gonna benefit them and stuff like that. But it's just one of the many ways to stop him. But yeah, Zidane does a lot of work on his own. We're playing one Fire Zidane for 2 reasons. One, he's a really strong sleeper card that came out of Opus 11, and it's just he also adds to the Zidane S, drawing into him. He also helps the color fixing in this deck. I only play one for that reason, but it's really strong. If you have fire in there, I always like teching one of him now when I play fire or anything with fire. Next is Beatrix, the Opus 12 powerhouse. It's really just her ability that kind of makes this deck work, and helps you kind of push for a game if your opponents let her in. The other thing is, the problem with her is that she's kind of weak and easy to remove. But yeah, when she or another knight comes in, your forward gets 2,000 power until the end turn, and then for free you can. Then the cost required to cast your next knight forward is reduced by 2. So it makes everyone else in this deck mostly as high as 3. And she's kind of the whole deck, so it's important to have her. Next is the triple Rain. We use the Rain. Well, we're playing 3 and 3. It's a little cloggy at times, but playing this Rain helps you deal with stuff like Zidane and little weenies, because you can summon him on command and then just pop stuff and then have him attack and take care of things. But this one is the main one too. Kind of helps, gives this deck a board clear. It's a little overpriced, but because you're playing 6 copies of Rain, it's easily doable. But it's also the main thing to give haste. So if you have forwards already, you bring him out, buffs your board again, 2,000, gives everyone haste. He attacks first, gives everyone 2,000, and reduces your opponent's board by 2,000. And then that kind of just helps you jump over everything easily, much easier than this deck already does. This deck plays 2 of the new Yuna, the Opus 12 Yuna. Partying attacking is something that this set brought a lot in, and so taking advantage of that. This deck doesn't play any water summons, so playing the other Yuna doesn't really make sense. But yeah, having her help deal with little problems throughout the game also helps you draw and get faster, right? If you're able to party attack with a few of the knights and stuff, they're not going to block you anyway, right? Because when you bring out another knight, everyone's getting bigger, and then you should have enough bodies on board for her to be able to kill something 12k or less. So just something to think about. She does come in handy for most games. Next is the old legendary Steiner. He's just a knight, probably the strongest of the knight choices that you can grab. Um, you can always buff him to make him stronger in case other things starts dying, and he draws you a card when you're at 3 damage. So Lonnie is another 9 character that kind of makes this deck easier and kind of searchable with everyone else. And just being able to steal cards from your opponent, things that'll help you like against certain matchups or in different situations, is always nice. Now, 3 Gawain, I would like to be able to fit in the Knight Gawain in here, but I can't. The other one, like there's just mono water one because this one's so much better. With Beatrix's effect, he's a 2 CP that gets you 4 CP if you have cards. Like the only problem with this Knights, the whole Knight engine is the fire side of Knights. There isn't that many Knight choices other than the Rain, and I put 1 Garland in here just because we wanted a little diversity and something else to kind of like stack up against other decks. Garland isn't a terrible card, but at 3 CP because of Beatrix, giving you a 12k brave attacker every turn is pretty good. I tested the 4-drop Garland that has reduced damage from opponents' effects. It's just not as good, unfortunately. Now, the 1 Garland doesn't do much for the deck, but it does help, keeping people at bay, and it always leaves you with an active forward to block. Again, like I said, I've tried the other Garlands, and there isn't enough space for all of the Fire Knights and all of the Knights in this deck. And then I'm also playing 2 of this Steiner. The more oftentimes you'll end up searching for this one first to help build board like you used to with the 9 deck. So Beatrix will make him 3, search out Aiko. Aiko will get you either Lani, the next night, or something else. Something 9 related, and it just kind of helps the engine go forward. If you've gotten away with Zidane a few times, then you'll have a way to search in the solution number 9. But yeah, so there is 2 and 2 Steiners, just for that reason. This guy's a chump blocker after that. Like once he gets the search, you just let him die, then take some damage, bring the next one out, draw the cards, and then you're ready to go. So that's it for the forwards. Like I said, Belias and Amaterasu, very straightforward. Battle trick, and then counters. 1 Ovelia, triple Sage, Artemisian, Clady, Class 4th Moogle. The problem with this deck I found too was that there's not enough fire. So, in my opinion, obviously, there's not enough good fire backups to support this deck. So you have stuff like Sage for 1-time haste, and then Princess Goblin here, which to help you search the 1 Rain, and then Black Waltz just for removal. I wish the standard unit FFCC one would search the water and fire one, but it's not. The fire one, I believe, searches ice and wind, so it doesn't do much for us here. Again, really the problem here is in my opinion, is the fire backups, which would probably is where I would put in the most work for this. I've thoroughly enjoyed the forwards here in this deck. There's still some things to test. Obviously, like I would like to add, Ash, the new Ash, and things of that nature, things that help you like filter through the deck faster and stuff. Now, talk about the weaknesses for this deck. Without Minwu, you super lose to Wind Ice, anything Barley or whatever. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Without Minwu, this deck just sits there and takes it, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, the only thing other than Minwu you can do is just beat them to it. If you're able to put down like 4 bodies and then give them haste. So that's the thing. The way I've played this deck is that you'll end up taking people to 2 damage, 2 or 3 damage at most, and then if in a turn or 2 they don't, you're not able to push or whatever, and they kind of hold you back, you will be able to spit out 4 forwards in 1 turn, as long as Beatrix is out, obviously. Get everyone super big, and then have Rain, haste, and push for a game. Your opponent will have like very few options at that point, in most decks anyway. Now, the problem is getting there, right? Like, the main thing with this deck is that it is a tempo deck, and this game is currently not at the state where everyone is allowed to play tempo. It is spit forwards out, and whoever has more forwards and more bodies at once works. And in that regards, Knights can do that, and they do that well. But it takes them a little longer than most, right? Like most people can play all forwards, no backups, and then still win, and that's something that we've been avoiding trying to do since the beginning of this game, and it really doesn't. It's hard to transition to that. I don't know if anyone else is feeling that way right now, but it's one of the problems I'm having building decks right now, especially with something like this. Like I really like this Knights deck, and I really like what what these cards can do together, but when it comes to fighting like Chocobos or Golbez or stupid things like that, there's nothing you can do, right? I'm sure I can switch up some cards and add more summons for more removal, for more spot removal, but all in all, it's really hard because they unless you have like a very, like, for example, Wind Ice is one of the easiest ways to say it, like on ready, very consistent, able to do board clear all the time. All of these things just don't make sense. So yeah, something to think about there. It's rough, but this is the first one. This is the one I like. It's probably shown the most success, but we'll talk about the next one. This is where I originally started, actually. Save the Queen was the ongoing name for this one. You'll see a lot of similarities here, but the main thing is that it uses Agrius. So if you open Agrius and Beatrix, you can put both down on the first turn, no matter what, and then you'll end up with 3 cards in play. So, Beatrix summons, effect, pitch 2 for Agrius. Agrius will bring out whatever, right? So leaving you 2 forwards on board, and occasionally 3, depending on what you get. And then you're able to do it. That's kind of what the old Agrius used to do as well, but now it's a little cheaper and a little more likely to happen because you don't have to search it and then waste. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just another option for you to draw it all together. So yeah, same. A few similarities, like I said, Zidane, Beatrix. Garnet is one of the interesting ones, and that's mostly because of Jegrin. Jegrin is another opening hand that this deck can do. If you're able to search something, let's say you open Beatrix Jegrin or Beatrix Agrius, or some way to get one or the other, he's just a really good way. You can play Agrius, pitch 2 for Jegrin. Jegrin will bring out Garnet. Garnet will, at that point, you'll be handless. Garnet will cast Poo Poo and leave you with 2 cards. That's putting you in a first turn, 3 forwards, 2 cards in hand, pass to your opponent. Now, they're not the strongest forwards, but you do have other things that'll help you with that as you go. You have Maya, you have Lua, you have Celeste. Celeste is one of the ones I like also in this deck. You eventually draw into Cloud Darkness, Ramza, and then down the road, I put this in there, but I think in my last version I took him out. Thancred, and those are the biggest differences. You're always, in this deck, you're looking for that one drop. You're either looking for Zidane, right, to drop him and then wait and hope to like build up and get ahead of your opponent if they don't have an answer. And then if they don't have that, you will draw, or if you don't open that, you will drop Beatrix Jegrin or Beatrix Agrius and end up with 3 cards on the board and hopefully something else. Because the other scenarios is you end up with, Beatrix Agrius, a Searcher, and then the Searcher nets you 1 card, right? So there's 2 situations there with either 2 or 3 forwards, or 2 forwards and 1 backup and a card, or 3 forwards and 2 cards in hand. And eventually this deck just hopefully overwhelms your opponent. But there are times where that backfires in this meta because those decks that I'm talking about, like mainly Barley and Samurais too, they can hold off these aggro decks off better than most people now. So that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. Like those decks are a lot more versatile than these decks right now. But again, I'm here to just give you the ideas that I've been going through and my thoughts on these decks. So one more time to wrap up this, the Save the Queen version. You have Triple Lua for the haste, which kind of replaces the rain. I tried fitting the rain in here as well. It's kind of complicated because there's no way to search it, and you're only playing the the light ones. The Maya is good. Celeste is good. Celeste I found to grow more fond of as I went on. But, being able to send a forward back and send a backup back is just super great and useful. Drawing cards is also useful. So Steiner, for the same old reasons. He's cheaper and gives you buffs. and then Clouds, Ramza. If you have enough forwards, Ramza's super free, and like if you have like 3 forwards, right? He's 3. You can use Beatrix's effect to make him 1, and then just bring him out for 1 CP. So you're still and if you have Ovelia, as long as you have one of the biggest combos that I don't know if people have seen or thought of, and if you're not aware, now you'll find out now, is that when Beatrix is out and you bring in Ramza, if he's at a point where he still doesn't have his ability, Beatrix's effect will trigger, giving everyone 2k, putting him at usually 10k or 11k, allowing him to swing and break something sooner than having 4 bodies on board. Or, you know, we used to play Lulu and Ovelia now to get that, right? So it's really good card. I think again in my last version I took out the Thankrits, put him at 3, and had other stuff. So sorry it's not updated, but you know there's so many decks I have like sitting in my log or whatever that I mess around with. And yeah, the Jagran was also a nice addition. So the other thing about him is that you can bring in Ovelia if you want to be safe. You can bring in the one Ovelia. And I think that's it for princesses that we have in this deck. It's the other princess targets. I think I had that 1-drop light too that can become anything, just to kind of make sure this guy isn't dead later in the game, right? Because let's say you have Beatrix and you already did the play, right? You did Agrius, and for some reason, miracle reason, you got into Garnet to get the poo-poo. Next turn, you draw into Jagran. You're like, okay, I won't be able to Jagran into another Garnet, so I'll just use him to bring out another backup. Like I said in the reviews of these cards, it's like my biggest thing is the 3-cost princesses, and unfortunately there isn't enough fantastic targets for this to be super like explosive. There are decent targets, right? And in this case, a backup would just work just fine. Poo-poos, Fanfrits, and Bahamut Zeros. I'm finding more and more Fanfrit is a little less useful in this meta, so I don't even know what to say to that. Like, it sucks, but you don't miss it in the fire water version, and you definitely don't use it as often as you'd like in this version. So this will probably get subbed out for, you know, more Bahamut Zeros, probably Ramu. And again, we're not using Yuna, so playing these water summons just seems super expensive sometimes. And then you have the same thing here, Ovelia and Doria for Duke, Aiko, Sid, Selkie, all the searchers. Bran helps you get, you know, the princess forwards if you need to. I think this is also switched out later. Merlwyb and Battaron, just to make sure you open Beatrix and one of the others, you know, Agrius or Jagran. Take these decks again with a grain of salt. Like, these are all works in progress. They are by no means I'm winning every locals with them. On the contrary, I'm losing a lot of locals because I'm still trying to explore. I'm refusing to commit to playing, you know, top tier decks. I always believe in making something that will always be better than, you know, following in line. And lastly, which is probably just more of an experiment than anything else, it's Mono Water Knights. This one is just really, you know, you're trying to play control water like you used to. You have regular Knight, which doesn't give you the buff, by the way. Zidane, Beatrix, Cagnazos. The reason Cagnazos sits here is because you're able to put out multiple forwards, right? Because of Beatrix, everything else is cheaper. So this guy's easier to, you know, to do his thing. Gawain. One of the highlights of him, I think, this is an old one. This is Opus 7. Doesn't receive damage from forwards abilities. So he'll always survive when Ice Wind, you know, Guido and all that silly stuff, or anything Barley, right? Like, he'll survive that. He won't die. So you won't lose all your forwards, assuming this guy stays up. Assuming you have him on the board, right? You'll have a body all the time. Rose is here for that same reason. We want to reduce the amount of times they can do it, hopefully keep you alive. Yuna's in here as well. I'm finding that the water summons aren't useful enough to, you know, warrant the Yuna. This deck draws enough and has enough value for you to play this over the 2-drop backup. Steiner, this one plays the Ash, and at one of this Agrius instead, one of this Steiner, 2 Lena, and 3 Cloud. You know, so again, Fanfrits and Sildras. Sildras should be in the other decks as well, but I found them to be a little heavy early on. But, you know, you guys play to your styles. We have 2 Ovelia, Triple Scholar, Artemisian Andorias again for the Clades. Minwu is very important again. This deck needs that Echo brand to search, this Ash or Lena or I think that's it. But and then Merwood to give you everything. Now, going over a few like pros and cons again about the whole Knights in general. The main thing is low cost. There, you should be able to build these non-foil for less than $100. Very playable, decent decks. They're able to keep up with most meta decks, but if it's a race deck who can spit more forwards and do it faster, you are slightly slower than most. In terms of protection and versatility, I think the fire water one is probably the best one. But yeah, these are 3 Knights decks that I wanted to share with you guys that I tested and just played through. Let me know what you guys think or have about any of these Knights decks. I would like to see if we can work on something. Send it to me. Send it to you. If you want to talk about it, give me an option. Show me something that you figured out would be great. So maybe I can bring it up next time I find one that works or I make one that works. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching. Hopefully coming soon is the other, the top decks that you should be playing or watching out for in this meta. So, yeah, welcome to Opus 12 again. I keep saying it, but have fun, guys. Have fun out there. Later.